So here we are with a man that doesn't even need an introduction, but he is a legendary NASCAR driver, just inducted into the Hall of Fame in the past couple of years, Bobby Allison.
Great to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on here. So Bobby, tell me something. The first time you went to Daytona and saw the track, when was that?
Well, about 1958, I was trying to get a race career going and dragging a little car around the state of Florida, running anywhere I could find a place. And had heard about the races in Alabama, was aware of that, but anyway, with going back and forth, I drove by this construction project one day. I can't even remember exactly what day it was, but went by the racetrack construction project and saw this monstrous big deal and said, wow, this is really going to be something. And so then the following year I began to run some in Alabama, and so every once in a while I'd detour over from my West Coast route to get from Miami into Alabama and over to the East Coast to go by the Speedway construction project and finishing project by then.
Wow. So, this first race was in 1959.
Yeah.
Before it was even called the Daytona 500, but
yeah.
I believe you raced in the first time it was actually called the Daytona 500 in 1961.
Yeah.
So that's your first experience in that race. Tell me about that.
Yeah. By then, Judy and I were married, and her oldest sister's husband was a big race promoter, race enthusiast, competitor, car owner. He even sold parts to other competitors, race car parts, and he was so into it. And he had this 60 Chevy with a 348 in it that Herbie Tillman had raced some the year before. And so got that thing ready and took it to Daytona for the 61 Daytona 500. And I just looked in my little directory book there, my Greg Felden book, and saw where I started 29th and finished 21st in the qualifying race, and started 30 something toward the back of the 30s and finished like 31st in the Daytona 500 that year.
So Bobby, by 1961, the race had only been around for a couple of years. I mean, was it a really iconic race at that time? I mean, what were your thoughts going into the very first ever Daytona 500 is what it was called?
Well, this was the big place at the time. I had run the short tracks and I had some success. I had run the short tracks and I had some success on the half miles and the quarter miles and stuff like that. Won some races and was building a career. But this was this great big place where these guys were going these high speeds and in these stock cars. And I was pretty enthused about the whole deal, and so I was really pumped up about it.
Nice, okay. So by the time you reached your win at the Daytona 500, you had a few years under your belt, and I think that was in 1961, is that right? No, I'm sorry, 1972.
78 was my first win.
78 was your first win, okay. So you had a lot of experience, you had plenty of wins prior to your win in the Daytona 500, but what did that actually mean to you, your very first win?
Yeah, the very first win in the Daytona 500 still was just a really, really big thing. I had won a lot of NASCAR races by then, Charlotte and Darlington, Atlanta, and Bristol and wherever. Had a lot of wins at the other tracks, but not at Daytona. And so to win Daytona, and especially in 78 and how it happened, it was really, really big time for me. I signed on to drive with Bud Moore, and I personally wasn't feeling good, didn't know what was wrong, but actually I was just wore myself out trying to run my own car the year before and the last year with that Matador. And just was tired out, but didn't feel good. And crashed on Friday in the qualifying race. It rained on Thursday, and so they had the qualifying race Friday morning, and got crashed in that and was really unhappy about that and was gonna go home, just call it quits. And Bud Moore's guys jumped on that car, and in a day and a half had that thing looking really good. And I said, I got to give them another day. And so I started 31st, maybe 33rd. But anyway, back in the low 30s in the Daytona 500, and came to the front and won that thing. And my first Daytona 500 win, with all the good things that went on with that. And I was just really, really happy about the whole deal.
It seems like the common theme throughout what we've been doing here is we've heard a lot of the struggles. Like a lot of the racers don't usually qualify on the pole. They lead most of the race and then they end up winning it. Most of the time it's like the struggle. I mean, what was that like starting back in the field and then having to fight your way through? I mean, with some of those great drivers like that.
Well, it really was an all-day job, you know, to get going, and of course, starting the race with a car that had not been track tested. You know, they worked on the car on Saturday. I guess this summer maybe we did get a little bit of happy hour on Saturday, but you know, the race, the Thursday race, and then the things that went on with that. You know, I just was there, and I was happy I was there, and so. Well, here I jumped ahead of myself too. I'm back to 59 again.
That's okay. No, that's okay. Yeah. No, that's a good answer. That's good.
Anyway, after finally winning that thing and going through what we did to win the '78 one, you know, we had the crash and then the repair of the car and everything, and the start of the race way in the back, and be able to win the thing put me on a whole different level in my own mind about, yes, I can do this.
So Bobby, you know, you won 3 Daytona 500s. Then you know, your boys were racing at that time, or throughout your career, they began racing. What kind of advice did you give your Allison boys as far as like what Daytona has to offer and what to look for?
Well, Davey was so attentive, and you know, he was such a buddy to me from the time he was a little bitty guy, that I certainly wanted to share anything I could with him. Clifford was still struggling, trying to find out if he really wanted to go racing or whether he wanted to quit playing or what he wanted to do. But Davey was really, really into it, and so anything I could help Davey with, you know, I did everything except back off and let him win a race. I had never did do that. You know, in fact, some people said, well, he was second to you there in the Daytona 500, why didn't you let him win? No, he's got to earn it.
Yeah.
So, and he understood that he had to earn it, but he really did all the things that any good young man would want to do to accomplish that.
Well, I mean, you're still a racer at heart.
Yeah.
You're still a racer at heart. You don't have to. You don't have to let your own son win the race for you. You know.
No, he's got time. He can win them on his own time.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So you felt, you know, sometimes now you feel like at times your career was kind of like a roller coaster. You had ups and downs,
Yes.
and then it was unfortunately cut short in 1988. Tell me what it was like in 2011 when you were finally inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
Well, that was just another really great accomplishment, a great pat on the back for me personally. You know, I just felt so good about it. I felt like I had earned it, but at the same time, I was concerned that politically maybe I didn't get all the right things in line to go in that early. You know, there was only one class ahead of us, and to go in that second class, and with the group I went in with, you know, with Ned Jarrett and Bud Moore, and you know, just it was really special.
Wow, that's great. Bobby Allison, thank you so much.
You bet.
Thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Okay.
3-time Daytona 500 winner, NASCAR legend Bobby Allison. So now that you've heard the story from legendary NASCAR driver Bobby Allison, we want to hear your story. #MyFirst500.